Welcome everyone to the IUPUI School of Science Biology JagDay. We're excited to have you here to learn more about what it'll be like to study biology at IUPUI. My name is Lori Hart, and I'm the Associate Director of Undergraduate Enrollment for the School of Science. My contact information is on your screen, and I want to encourage you to contact me with any questions you have about the School of Science, from visiting to applying to accepting your offer of admission. The School of Science is one of two Purdue University degree granting schools here at IUPUI. You'll be studying in our 4 science buildings on our campus, including our brand new Innovation Hall, which boasts many new state-of-the-art science labs and classrooms, including biology. We have 9 science academic programs: biology, chemistry, computer science, earth sciences, forensics, math, neuroscience, physics, and psychology. And our students are involved in over 500 campus organizations and over 30 science clubs and interest groups, such as Biology Club and Pre-Med Club, but you're encouraged to join any science organization no matter what your major. So for example, if you enjoy hiking and caving, you may want to join the Earth Science Club. Or if you want to help plan a murder mystery dinner, then the Forensics Club would be something you'd be interested in. In Computer Science Club, you can help design and program a gaming cabinet. There is truly something for everyone. And the School of Science is invested in your success, providing free tutoring and from experienced tutors in select science courses in biology, chemistry, computer science, math, physics, and psychology to supplement your course content. And we understand that you have many options of where you can study science, but I wanted to share the advantages to studying science at IUPUI. First of all, we're a dedicated school of science as opposed to a school of liberal arts and sciences, which allows us to focus all of our time and resources on our passion, which is science. Furthermore, our pre-professional and career advising office, which we call Science Preps, focuses only on science and has created relationships with the employers that hire and the graduate and professional schools that admit science students. They will provide you with the expert help in resume writing, internship, full-time employment searches, and internship searches, and professional school preparation and applications. Next, our location in downtown Indianapolis provides you with many advantages. Living and learning in downtown Indy is fun. We have the Indianapolis Zoo, museums, the Indiana Repertory Theater, the Indianapolis Colts, the mall, and many great restaurants, all within walking distance of our campus. Nearby, we have many companies such as Eli Lilly and Salesforce, and city, county, and state agencies who hire our students for internships and provide job shadowing opportunities. We also have 5 hospitals on or adjacent to our campus, as are the IU schools of medicine, dentistry, and law, providing you access to amazing volunteer shadowing, research, and internship opportunities. Next, you'll be immersed in a tight-knit science community. You can easily find us by our science shirts that we proudly wear around campus. Here you'll find academically focused science students who enter IUPUI with GPAs and test scores above the all IUPUI average. You'll find your people here in study groups, student organizations, and in the many social opportunities available to you. This year, U.S. News & World Report named IUPUI number 49 in the nation for our commitment to undergraduate teaching. Our faculty is committed to undergraduate education. What that means for you is that the majority of your classes will be taught by full-time faculty, and you'll find our professors to be approachable and accessible with weekly office hours for students. And last, you'll find amazing opportunities within science to get involved in research as early as your freshman year and see the real-world contribution of your classroom knowledge. If you are a direct admit biology student, you'll want to learn more about the first-year science apprentice program in biology, where you can be placed in a paid position in a biology research lab. And if not, you can still get involved in research by reaching out directly to science professors whose research you're interested in, and getting involved through the many research programs available to IUPUI students, such as the Life Health Science Internship program during your sophomore or junior year. Now at IUPUI, you have endless options available to you, and you can choose the living situation that is best for you, on campus, a nearby apartment, or commuting from home. If you're an admitted student and you're interested in living in one of our 4 residence halls, I encourage you to apply for housing as soon as possible to secure your place. There are still spots available, but our housing does fill every year. Housing contracts will be sent out beginning April 1st to your IUPUI email account. They will be sent on Thursdays through June in the orders applications were received. If you have applied for housing, you'll want to check your IUPUI email account every Thursday to see if your contract has arrived. And because once it's arrived, you have only until the following Monday to accept. And if you'd like to live with other science, technology, engineering, and math students who are taking the same classes as you, you can sign up to live on the STEM floor in North Hall. You'll find it under residence-based learning communities in your housing application. And if you've already applied, you can still go in and update that preference and it will not affect your application date. To learn more about housing, or to apply, you can go to housing.iupui.edu. Now I invite you to visit us and take a student-led tour of the School of Science and see where you'll be studying. We offer in-person tours every Thursday and Friday this spring. You can tour only the School of Science or pair it with an IUPUI campus tour. We have a JagDay like this for all 9 of our academic units. Tomorrow we'll focus on forensic science, and Thursday's program will be earth science, the earth sciences programs of geology and environmental science. Now you're welcome to attend as many as you're interested in. And if you've missed any of our previous JagDays, we'll have them all recorded and posted on our IUPUI Science YouTube channel. Now you can find information on our science visit options and our JagDays at science.iupui.edu/visit or email me at science@iupui.edu with any questions you may have. Committed students can register for orientation beginning on March 29th. So get started early to get the best selection of times for your classes and labs. And you'll also want to follow at IUPUI Science on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to learn more about our students and faculty, as well as the exciting opportunities available to you in science. Now, in a few minutes, we'll have biology students Sylvia, Lucas, and Thomas here to answer any questions you have. So stay tuned after our biology department presentation to hear from them. I want to remind you that you can ask any questions you have for me or our faculty or student panels by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We want to answer your questions, so please ask them as you think of them during the presentation, and we'll answer at the end. Now, I'm pleased to introduce biology professor and chair Dr. Ted Cummins and biology academic advisors Jane Alexander and Jane Parr to speak with you more about the curriculum, resources, and research of the biology department at IUPUI. Welcome, Jane, Jay, and Dr. Cummins.
So we'd like to welcome you to this moment talking about biology. Jane Parr, who said hello, and myself are 2 of the academic advisors in the department. We actually have divide people by surname. So I work with the first part of the alphabet. Jane Parr works with the latter part of the alphabet. We have another advisor whose name is Krista Swisher. She works with transfer students. And we also consider one of the advisors for the department the people who work in the PREPS office, which Lori mentioned earlier. We have the PREPS office, which serves you in your, oh, there we are. We've got the departmental photo there and the picture of the greenhouse. Yes, you can keep going. There are a couple little add-ons that'll happen here. There you go. So again, and you can keep going here too, because there's an add us in. So I am at the top there, Jane Parr. Krista Swisher was at the bottom, and the bottom left is one of the people from the PREPS office, our director of the PREPS office, Jamie Sperandio. And so we all help you in a variety of ways during your time on campus. The actual academic advisors, Jane Parr, myself, and Krista Swisher, help you with your scheduling and registration and things like that. Jamie Sperandio and her team help you with planning your trajectory toward whatever it is you're going to do in the future and all the things that go into that process. We have 2 degrees that are undergraduate degrees, the BA, the Bachelor of Arts, and the Bachelor of Science in Biology. They're both great degrees. I usually tell students that if they're thinking about going to graduate school for a master's or a PhD degree, the BS might be better preparation for that. A lot of people say which one is better for professional school. Either one is a fine preparation for professional school. There are some differences in requirements in that the BA requires a language. The BA has a lower requirement level for math. The BS requires 2 semesters of calculus. The biology for the BS is, there are more credits that you need to take in the biology realm and a little bit more chemistry. I will say about those degrees overall, our curricula are pretty intensive, so you have to be prepared to put in a lot of study time for a biology degree at IUPUI. We do have a couple other degree options that are not strictly undergraduate degrees. They're combined, 2 degrees that are combined undergraduate and master's degrees, and you can see them here. The Biology BS Informatics Master of Science program, 5-year program, and we have the Biology BA MPH or the BS MPH, which is a Master's of Public Health, and that's a 5-year program. We have one other degree program that would not really be something that you would be involved in likely, This is a program called Biotechnology, and students attend Ivy Tech for 2 years to earn the associate's degree and then complete the BS at IUPUI after transferring here. So those are all the programs in the department. Lori spoke a bit about some of the things that are attractive about studying at IUPUI, and I would say some of the things overlap with what I would talk about in terms of studying biology. We have excellent professors, and they're not only good teachers, but they're also wonderful people in terms of student mentoring. They take students under their wings and often serve as mentors for research. And so they're really wonderful, wonderful role models and mentors, as well as being teachers. Lori also mentioned the opportunities for research, and one of the ones she mentioned I'll talk about in a little bit, but there are opportunities for undergraduates to engage in research, both in the department and across campus at times, depending, I mean, there are a number of programs available. There are lots of resources, and Lori also mentioned these. They're not only in the School of Science, but they're across campus. They're academic, they're personal. Again, she mentioned the off-campus resources as well, and the a little bit of additional information that, you know, you can think about the hospitals or the various industries and things as places to gain some experience as an intern or possibly volunteer. And then I would say that our school features a community of learners who are very serious about their future, about education, and are passionate about learning. So you will find lots of other people who are as interested in pursuing a degree and getting wherever they're planning to go as you are yourself. And then there's an opportunity to serve as a recitation leader in entry-level biology classes. And there's more about that recitations on the next page. So we have undergraduates who help with recitations in biology, and I'll talk about recitations. So the third bullet point on this page says, some classes will be large. So there are some large classes here on campus. Entry-level biology and chemistry, for example, will be large classes. But we divide those large classes into smaller groups, and those pull-out sessions are called recitations. So the opportunity exists for undergraduate students to lead those recitations after they've completed that level of coursework. So if you've done really well in your first year biology classes, you would be a good candidate to serve as a recitation leader for biology. Again, these recitations are smaller. They range from about 9 to about 30 students. You will be learning things, not just in biology. You will take courses in chemistry, physics, math, computer science, English communication, lots of different things. One of the little asterisks here says prior credit does not always equate to coursework at IUPUI. We have a good number of people who come in with math credits that may or may not be sufficient to accelerate them through the math sequence. So that's something we work on with each student to ascertain where they stand in terms of the math sequence. And it's very important to not move too far ahead in the math levels, to start at a reasonable level for you so that you do well and set yourself up for future classes and do well in those as well. So we have a lot of students who are pre-professional. I think Lori mentioned that briefly. And so we have students who are going into all these different kind of directions that you can see on this slide here. Yeah, and mostly, you know, the majority probably are looking at medical school, dental school, or physician assisting. And we have a few who are interested in these other areas. And occasionally at the bottom there, law or occupational therapy. So people can go in all these different directions from our curricula. However, a lot of people are also interested in graduate school or going into the workforce. These are just some of the professional directions some people choose. So you can, go ahead and put a few more in. Okay, so this is a picture from a couple of years ago of students in our greenhouse, which Lori also mentioned. So our biology club is normally very active. At the moment, it's kind of not very active because of COVID-19, but normally we grow plants in the greenhouse. We have a couple plant sales a year, and I'm one of the advisors for the biology club, and we really enjoy that interaction with students and bringing the lots of presentations to the community. We do something called Pizza with a Professor, where someone is presenting about their research and talking to the community about what's going on in their lab. There are lots of things going on in Biology Club. It's a great organization. You might also decide to add a minor, or you could even add a double major if you were interested, but only if you're interested in time and time allows. It's not something that you need to feel obligated or think that it will necessarily make you a better candidate for something. It is something that is more built on your interest and if time allows. Some of you may be already admitted to the honors program on campus, and that's great. But if you weren't admitted, or if you didn't even apply, there's an opportunity to apply through the School of Science for the honors program after your first year in a School of Science curriculum. We hope that some of you will find an interest in studying abroad. It's important to make sure you're working with your academic advisor from the beginning of the time you're thinking about this, because it takes a lot of careful planning to make sure you're getting classes that are appropriate and that you could be gone at an appropriate time. So really think about it carefully. We encourage you to do this, but start from day one thinking about how you can put this into your schedule and talk to your advisor. So we mentioned earlier the first year science apprenticeship program. This program places first year students into labs, also into some other areas in the department. We have some who work in the prep labs, which are places where students help with preparation for teaching labs. But we have a lot who also work in the research labs. So these two pictures are pictures of former first year science apprenticeship program students who are placed in labs. They work up to 10 hours a week and get paid for that work. And it's a wonderful opportunity to get some experience, to get to know a faculty member probably, to maybe get to know someone who can serve as a resource or a reference for you in a letter later on. It's a really fabulous experience. So some of you may be interested in that. And now I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Ted Cummins, who's going to talk about what kinds of research are going on in the department. Dr. Cummins is our department chair.
Thank you, Jane. We have some great advisors. Jane and Jane are terrific. And we have some great opportunities for students to get involved in research. Biology is a science, and we think that getting active in real, authentic experiments and lab work is an important part of the process. And a lot of our students are able to do that either within the School of Science or by taking advantage of the huge amount of labs over at the medical school. And so within biology, we have about 27 faculty, and about 18 of those have research labs. I teach cell biology, and in the lab, I study the cellular and molecular mechanisms of epilepsy and pain. But I'm going to highlight some of the other research labs in the department and give you an idea of what you can get involved with. So here's a great one. Jim Mars, in his lab, he studies zebrafish, but he studies zebrafish to understand human diseases. And so one of the things he's been studying is how prenatal alcohol exposure affects development, and trying to look at possible therapies for this. And so he uses the zebrafish and the zebrafish larva to study how alcohol affects eye development, or how it affects the development of the heart. And he's also been working with me and Lucas. Lucas was involved with this, one of the students online, trying to develop a model for epilepsy. Ben Perrin, teaches genetics and cell biology lab, and he studies the cell biology of hearing loss. So he studies these weird hair cells, not on your head, but these hair cells that are in your inner ear that transduce sound waves into hearing. And he studies how they develop and uses some pretty high-end microscopy techniques and electron microscopes to look at the structures of these hair cells and how proteins within them contribute to their ability to transduce sound. Christine Picard is just terrific. She's gotten some awards recently for her research, and she studies the genetics of flies, which is a little strange, but she's a forensic biologist. And so one reason she studies it is because fly larvae can help you figure out how long something's been dead. But she also is using flies as little biological drones and trying to figure out if they can be used to surveil the environment. And so she studies the genetics of the flies and using genetics, what they are sampling out in the environment. So that's a pretty cool lab approach. A.J. Balcom. A.J. Balcom is a biochemist and a neuroscientist, and he studies these arrays of proteins that exist in the synapses of your nervous system. And he studies this one protein in particular called spinophyllin, which he thinks is critical for scaffolding and creating interactions that are involved in learning and memory. And so he does this using biochemical techniques, but also, next slide, he studies the behavior of animals with spinophyllin defects in them. And so he studies spinophyllin knockout mice and analyzes their motor behavior. Are they able to keep on the rotating rod, or do they fall off the rod? He studies their ability to move. He studies learning and memory deficits. And so he goes from the molecular to the whole animal level in his research. And this is a paper that AJ published a couple years back. And the first author on this paper, Cameron Morse, was an undergrad when he did this research in AJ's lab. Now, not all undergrads get to publish, but it's a goal, and it's something that is feasible. And sometimes they're a middle author on a publication, but on this publication in Molecular and Cellular Neuroscience, a pretty good journal, Cameron was first author. And Cameron is now in graduate school in the medical neuroscience program through the School of Medicine. Susan Walsh, she is also a geneticist. She studies population genetics. She's also part of the forensics program, and she uses DNA analysis to help predict what we look like. So she can predict eye color based on your DNA, hair color based on your DNA. And so they use this for forensic DNA phenotyping. And what she's trying to do now is predict facial morphology, predict what we look like based on our DNA, which is kind of like creating a biological witness. And for forensics, this makes a lot of sense, because if you have some DNA and you want to figure out what the person it came from looked like, and in forensics, this could be a suspect or a victim, if you can recreate their face, then maybe you can help identify them. And she's also used that technique for disease genetics, as well as for identifying some ancient bodies and discovering who they were, even though they died centuries ago. Greg Anderson, he studies bacteria. He also teaches microbiology, so that makes sense. He's an expert in bacteria and how bacteria form these biofilms. And in particular, these biofilms are important because they can lead to the development of chronic infections in the lung or other parts of the body. And so he's studying how these biofilms form and how you could target the biofilms that the bacteria live in, and how these are altered by different conditions such as diabetes, smoking, or autoimmune disorders. Randall Roper, he loves having undergrads in the lab, and he's just a terrific mentor. He takes more than almost anybody each year. I think I had 6 undergrads in my lab this year, 3 physically in the lab and 3 virtually because of the pandemic. And Randall usually has 8 to 10 each semester working with him. And so what Randall's been doing is he's been studying how genes that are overexpressed in Down syndrome alter development, and looking at how they alter development of transgenic mice, and looking at how they might be targeted to reduce some of the symptoms in individuals that have Down syndrome. And this is a study from his lab that was published looking at therapies, and in particular this green tea extract that some were using in individuals with Down syndrome. And Rachel Long was an undergrad who was the first author on this paper doing an overview of what the green tea extract might be doing. And we have other things that come up all the time. This is one, engaging undergraduates to survey our urban ecology, that Patrick Gentry, Patricia Clark, and Christine Picard are involved with, along with Gabe Filippelli in the Department of Earth Sciences, trying to set up these game cameras to see what's around town. And you'd be amazed at the things they're picking up on the cameras. The wildlife is impressive in Indianapolis. And last one I think I'm going to show is Bonnie Blazer-Yost. Bonnie is absolutely terrific. She's a physiologist. She's been studying ion fluxes involved in the kidney, but more recently, ion flux changes with hydrocephalus. And she's trying to develop novel therapies and has some patents for novel therapies to treat both kidney disorders and hydrocephalus. And she's had funding from the Defense Department for her hydrocephalus research. A lot of the labs are funded by the National Institutes of Health, but we also have labs funded by the National Geographic Society, from the National Institute of Justice, from the National Science Foundation, and multiple other foundations. Oh, there is one more. We also do some plant research in the department. Steve Randall's lab studies how cold affects plants such as strawberries and soybeans, trying to figure out how to improve the harvest, make plants more cold resistant. And I still have another one. We've got a lot of research in the department. Terry Bilecki-Adams studies retinal disease and development. And the picture on the right, that green looking flower, that's not a plant, that's a retina that's been cut apart so you can lay it flat and see the vasculature in the retina. And on the left side are some stained retinal neurons, and looking at how the retina is degraded in disease and how the retina might be regenerated to help cure blindness and other disorders. And this is a paper that came out on retinal ganglion cells that I was part of from Jason Meyer's lab. Jason is at the med school, but he takes undergrads from the School of Science, and Elise Fetter was working in his lab on these retinal ganglion cells, which were derived from human pluripotent stem cells, which were derived from skin cells. Okay, so lots of great research, and I hope all of you will consider coming here and getting involved in our research. And I'm going to turn this back over to Jane Alexander.
Okay, I'm back again. So we mentioned a couple times earlier resources, and this is just another little review of the resources that will be available to you on campus. Academic resources, Lori mentioned several of these. Again, career resources, primarily for School of Science preps, and there's Jamie Sparandio again. And personal resources, which range from things like financial aid to counseling and psychological services and health services, et cetera, many, many resources. We wanted to talk just briefly about bringing in credit, because this always is a question that people have. They have been pursuing AP or IB or dual credits in high school. Will those count for things in college? And the generic answer could be yes in many cases, but you have to be careful about certain classes. So If it's a kind of a class that's not so integral to your major, something like English or psychology, you can probably use the credit if you have it. If it's something like math or biology or chemistry, you have to think very carefully about whether it's a really good idea to use those credits, either dual or AP. And the reasons are severalfold. One is that often if you've got especially dual credit for, say, math, it may not be really at the level that you'd be looking at it here if you were taking it here. And if you're going to be building on that old math credit or that previous math credit, it may not be a strong enough foundation to really give you the elevation you need to go on to the next level. And the other thing is that and this is important for anybody who's interested in professional education after going to a professional school after their undergraduate career, some professional schools will not accept AP credit in the sciences or in the courses that are specifically required as prerequisites. So it's very important to think about whether you're going to use those credits or not. Dual credits, again, we can use a lot of the dual credits, but again, you want to make sure you're feeling like you've got a good foundation if you're going to be going on in the next levels of those courses. Often the credit that you gain in dual credit in high school is not as, I'm going to use the word strong, as you would have if you took the course here. You may feel if you move on to the next level, you may be kind of feeling a little bit lost. So you want to be careful about that. And some people say, well, I took honors courses in high school, do they count? And though if you took honors courses, that can be great preparation for coursework here at IUPUI. However, if you don't have AP or IB or dual credit, the honors courses in and of themselves will not give you any credit. You must have that other piece to actually have credit that you can use here. So after graduation, you could go on to a master's or a PhD, either in biology or in something kind of related like an MPH, Master's of Public Health, or genetic counseling, or these other kinds of areas. Some people enter professional school. Some people find a biology related position. Often that would be lab work in some kind of a biotech industry, or even on a campus like IUPUI. Some people choose to go on and teach in high school and go through a program to transition to teaching. And that's it. That's our presentation. And so we are happy to welcome you to IUPUI. We would love to interface with you. And whenever the question time is, I can't remember what you said about that, Lori, we are happy to answer questions if you have them.
Okay, thanks, Jane and Dr. Cummings. I appreciate your time here. We have a few questions from the audience. First, we have one from Kirsten. She said, when is it time to walk through your classes? Will all classes be in the School of Science?
I'll take that. No, your classes could be actually all over campus. There are some that have to be in a specific place because of specific requirements. So if you're in a lab, you have to be in a room that has the lab equipment that you need for whatever it is. So those kinds of classes, the chemistry classes would be in chemistry lab placements wherever they are, and biology would be, a lot of them would be in this building, but there are some in the new buildings. But like if you had a math class or a psychology class or an English class, it could be anywhere on campus because any building can accommodate a class that doesn't have any additional requirements other than audio, visual, and a whiteboard. Walking through your classes, a lot of people do that during orientation. Maybe one of the students would like to talk about that. How did you walk through your classes?
Yeah, so I used to work with orientation services myself. And with orientation, I really don't know if that's offered this year in person, but if it is, you'll go through your classes during that time. If not, you can always make a day and come down here to campus and just there are maps online too. You could look up and go off those and walk around and try to find the majority of your classes.
Did you do Bridge by any chance?
Yes, I did.
I think they're planning on Bridge this summer. And so Bridge is a thing that happens about a week before classes begin. And usually as part of Bridge, if you are here on campus, you have some time to do that walkthrough, I think, right?
Right. Yeah. If they have Bridge and they go through that process, they should have time there.
And let me just say that it's easy to get from one class to the next within about 10 minutes. We get that a lot, that question. Sometimes there might be only a 15-minute interval between one and the next one, but 10 minutes is usually sufficient to get to your next class.
And Camille asked that she read her admissions letter and found out she was a direct admit to the School of Science rather than University College for her first year. What does that mean in terms of classes or difference between being a direct admit and University College? So it doesn't mean much at all. Whether you are an admit to University College or a direct admit to the School of Science, you'll still be taking the same classes. Some students who have excelled in high school were offered direct admission to the School of Science, but majority of our students do come through University College. You just spend a year in University College and you'll have a STEM advisor, and you'll be taking the exact same classes as if you were a direct admit. And after your first year, after you've taken those beginning classes, you apply and will be admitted to the School of Science, provided you maintain a 2.0 GPA. And then Jack asked, how do I sign up for the first year apprentice program and when would I sign up?
You would sign up this summer during orientation, and we will give you that information in a packet that you would receive at orientation.
Right. And do we have any choices in the labs that we are placed in for first year apprentice?
So you can express your preferences. You have the opportunity to do that. There's one person, Dr. Gentry is the coordinator of the program, and he makes he kind of aligns the students with the possible positions, but you do have a chance to make some, note your preferences.
Okay. And is it a competitive application process, Jane, or do all direct admits who sign up for that program get involved in it?
I would say that it's not exactly competitive. It's more like if you apply earlier, you have more chance, especially if we're still limited on numbers. So last year we have been having maybe 35, but I think last year we only had about 12 because we could not have as many people in the labs. So if we're back to our normal numbers, then it will be more about the people who finish their paperwork first in the process once the cycle starts going. And if they're fine, if their paperwork's fine and everything, they probably have a good chance of being the ones.
Okay. And Kristen asks, how do you register for your classes before or after orientation?
You will meet with one of us after you have gone through orientation. And as far as I know, this summer, that will be via Zoom or phone. Lori, have you heard if there are going to be any in-person orientations at the end of the summer?
I've heard that they are trying to figure that out still. So there's nothing in stone, but that is their hope, is to bring on students for orientation in person towards the end. But most of your initial orientation will be in online modules, and it will also be a Zoom meeting with your advisor.
And just make sure that you read all of your email sent to your email account. You'll be getting a lot of information to come, and it's all important. So just make sure you're looking for that.
And Jane would probably add, if I didn't, that you want to make sure you get your tests in place before your orientation, because there'll be a math test, placement test, and a chemistry placement test that are very important for us to be able to give you good advice about what to do.
And a little bit more advice on that. When you do take your placement test, you have up to 5 chances on your math placement test. So you can go in and take that once, and you can see if you would like to study a little bit more for certain areas that you didn't do as well, because it will give you that information. But if you need to take the chemistry placement exam, you only get to take that once. So really sit down in a quiet place, be serious about it. There's a practice exam on there. Take that first, because then you'll kind of know what to expect. But once you do start that chemistry exam, you have to finish it. You can't stop it and start it later. You need to go through and finish it. And it does decide what chemistry class that you're placed in to begin with. So it is a really important test. So please, give that the consideration that it deserves.
And with the math placement test, if it seems like the material is becoming too difficult for you, or it seems like new material, then that would be a good place to stop, because you don't want to be in over your head with math. That's not a good place to be. So you don't want to try too hard.
Right. And Sarita asked, what type of Clep classes can apply to the general biology degree?
Well, there are a list of Clep classes that can apply. I have very rarely had anybody Clep much of anything. I mean, I think you can Clep biology, you can Clep some languages and some other courses. There are things you could do. Again, be careful about that though, because if you were to Clep, say, biology, then try to jump into higher level biology, that might be hard. It might be not only hard, but almost shooting yourself in the foot. It's
I
something to
agree.
be wary of. I have one student who's talking about Clepping language, and I think that's fine. If she Cleps it, great. If she doesn't, it's okay. That would be fine.
And if I want to major in biology on a pre-med track, do I need to declare that or tell that to someone?
Well, you can. So people do that, and it's nice to know because it helps us understand who our students are, and it helps preps know how to reach out to a group of students. So they reach out a lot to particular groups. They'll reach out to all the pre-dental students or all the pre-med students or whatever. So yes, you can let us know during orientation, and we will have someone put that in the record that is your aspiration. It doesn't really change. It changes a little bit how we think about you and what courses we might recommend, and it certainly changes how preps works with you, but it doesn't change your actual biology curriculum much. I mean, there's some places you might go this way rather than that way, but there's the biology and then there's the pre-med, and we have to kind of think of them together a little bit.
But you don't have to declare that before orientation.
Right.
And then once you are here on campus, you can make an appointment to meet with Jamie Sprandio in our preps office, and she would be your pre-med advisor. So she would be able to walk you through creating a timeline and the experiences that will help your application, and even further along MCAT preparation and such. So she would be your go-to for that, but you wouldn't meet with her until after you're already on campus. All right, we got a couple more questions about placement tests I wanted to tackle. Are we required to take all the placement tests, or are we required to take all the placement tests, or are we only required to take specific ones? And basically, if they feel that they're comfortable in them, do they still need to take the placement tests?
Yes, all placement tests are required. So if you're asked to take one, then you need to take it as soon as possible. And so when you come to orientation, you should have already taken the placement test. And if you haven't, then you won't be able to get in to, say, if it's math, a math course, until you take that placement test. So we want those in place. I'm sorry.
No, the math and the chemistry are what we really are talking about here. If you want to, you can take a placement test in a language. Like if you have a background in French from high school and you think you can, you might want to take some courses, but you don't want to start. I mean, you have some background and you want to take some French, you should take the placement test to know where you stand. But if you're never going to take a language, you don't have to take a placement test. And there's an optional, or at least it has been in the past, optional kind of placement for English that has happened sometimes. And that's really, I mean, some people take it and some people don't. We're really want you must take math and chemistry.
Yeah.
And Aaliyah mentioned, when can we start taking the placement test? And we talked a little bit about that, but it is part of the orientation process. So that will be, shown to you which test you need to take and how you would do that. So you would want to do that, during the orientation process, and then again before you're meeting with your advisor, so they can place you in the correct classes. And then Casey, I do see your question, but I'm going to let the students answer that, so I'm not ignoring that. Last question here for the advisors or Dr. Cummings. What type of laptop is recommended for biology majors?
We get that question all the time, and there is no particular recommendation. So what I will say is that we have resources here on campus. We have an agreement with Dell whereby we have discounted hardware. There's also free software here on campus, so some of those could be useful. Students, what do you think about laptops? Maybe is that okay to throw that to them?
Yep, yeah, I think the students should weigh in. I know Chromebooks have been a little difficult this past year to work with.
Okay.
I guess as a lab TA, I work with a lot of students. We have to make like Excel spreadsheets and programs. So I would agree with Dr. Cummins with the Chromebook. There's usually a few problems with the software and downloading things, but most students I see have Macs, or I have a Windows Surface. So something general like that, nothing too crazy like engineering software is like any computer handling that.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, there is no specific one that we do require. There is a link that kind of has general hardware requirements that I can forward on, but there is nothing that is specifically required. But I have heard the same about the Chromebooks for most of our majors is something you do want to avoid. And don't worry about bringing any software with you. All of the software that you will need will be shared with you through the IU network. So you do not have to even get Microsoft Office. That is something that we do provide. All right, and so I did want to thank Jane, and Dr. Cummins. I really do appreciate your time, and we're going to move on to the student panel, and we'd love for you to ask any questions you have for our students. Let's start off by, first I'm going to welcome Thomas, Sylvia, and Lucas, and have you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your educational pursuits at IUPUI. So we'll start with Thomas, and then Sylvia, and then Lucas.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Thomas. I'm a junior here at IUPUI studying bio with minors in chem and math.
Hi everyone, my name is Sylvia. I am a junior biology student on the pre-med track, and I'm also minoring in health administration, which is exciting. Some things I do on campus: I'm a PLTL chemistry leader for general chemistry. I'm also the course coordinator for that program. I'm vice president of administration for Vita Health Partnerships, which is a university student organization. And I am also in MAPS, which is the Minority Association for Pre-Health Students.
My name is Lucas. I am a biology, neuroscience, and sociology triple major. I've also got minor in an epidemiology. I'm a pre-MD PhD student. So what I want to do in the future is become a physician scientist. Other things that I do on campus: I'm a peer health educator. I work in Dr. Cummins' lab. I've done this for a couple of years, like the science ambassador.
All right, well, Casey has a question that I wanted to have the students answer. How often would you have labs like in class? So can you talk a little bit about the lecture lab recitation model and what that looks like on a weekly basis?
Yeah, so there's usually you have your main lecture, and that's kind of, your traditional idea of college, where big classroom full of 100, 200 students, and that's where you'll get the majority of your information. And then that usually happens twice a week for biology and chem courses, most courses. And then for your bio and chem courses that have labs, your labs will most likely meet once a week for the entry level courses. And then once you move up, it could go up to 2 times a week. And sometimes that second class that you meet for your lab is called a recitation. And the recitation is more of a time to practice course material with your classmates, most of the times in the form of a workbook.
And Thomas, how many students did you normally have in your labs and recitation?
I'd say like 15. They like to keep them smaller so we can really interact and get a feel for each other in the class. So
it does. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about research because it is such an important thing here at IUPUI. Lucas, you talked that you work in Dr. Cummins' lab. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do there and how you got involved?
So I got involved when I was a freshman, not a part of the freshman work apprentice program or whatever, but I had actually asked around to one of my favorite professors, like, who's kind of doing this kind of research. She's like, go to Dr. Cummins, just say hello. Kind of later that week, he invited me to come see his lab, and then kind of work for him the following semester. Kind of as his mentee, I worked in molecular biology approaches, and now I kind of do some more computational, looking at how sodium channels actually function. So sodium channels are important for in like epilepsy and other pain kind of mutations.
One of the really cool things about getting involved in research, especially as a freshman, is we don't expect you to come in knowing your way around a research lab. You're going to be taught what you need to know, and you're going to be able to take your classroom learning and see it at work in the lab, which is a pretty amazing experience. Now, Thomas, you had a little bit different experience with research. You got involved in the Life Health Science Internship Program, which is something that's available to students as sophomores and juniors. Can you talk a little bit about your experience, what you did and how you applied for that program?
Yeah, so it's really for freshmen, sophomores, more the underclass range. And they want to provide, LHSI does, research opportunities for you to put on your resume to give you experience while at IUPUI. And there's a simple application that comes out towards the beginning of the year. And you usually find out by the end of that spring semester if you've made it on. And then it's a full year internship with a partner through LHSI. Mine was through the School of Medicine. Dr. Lindsay Mayo over at the Pediatrics Research Center for Riley.
Right. And Sylvia, you talked a little bit about that you were starting research this summer. So really, there's no right time to get involved in research. You can do it any time during your undergraduate career. But what are your plans for research this summer?
Well, I will be starting with Dr. Walsh this summer, which I'm very excited, part for my capstone, but part to just get in the lab. My plan was to get in the lab at the start of this academic semester, but the plans were delayed because of COVID. So yeah, I just reached out to her through one of my TAs. So one of my TAs is in her lab, and he's a graduate student. So he kind of helped me tell me about the lab and kind of open that door for me.
Yeah, so definitely what I guess the main point is to use your network and talk to the people that you know within the program to find out what's available. But honestly, what these students are telling you, speaking to professors, getting to know them is how the majority of our students do get involved in working in the labs. And many of them are paid positions, some are for internships or also for credit you can get through our preps department as well. So there's a lot of different options out there. We've got a few questions coming in that I wanted to answer. So someone asked, how many credits do we need to take a minor in compared to something we're majoring in? So, I mean, Thomas, I know you've got a minor. How many credits are your minors?
That I'm not for sure about. I know it's definitely a lot smaller than the majors.
I can answer that. I mean, I
Thank
can
you.
tell you that minors range from as little as one extra course, depending on, like it depends on what your major is and how similar a minor is. So for instance, for a biology major to add a chemistry minor is one course. But if you wanted to add a business minor, it's 21 credits, 7 courses. So there's a big range, but I would say the average is going to be probably around 15 credits. And there might be some that are 12 and there are going to be some that are maybe 18, but really probably the majority are right around 15.
Yeah, so many of the sciences are interdisciplinary that it's not really hard to pick up a science minor if that's something you're interested in. It's when you go outside of the science realm that it will be a little bit more credit hours, but those are definitely good minors as well. Sylvia, you're involved in health administration as your minor. So what piqued your interest in that, and what's it like to go outside of the School of Science for a minor?
So this one I'm excited to start the class. I've only taken one class so far, but this next fall I'll be kind of diving really deep into it. But I kind of got inspired to get involved with public health through my student organization. So again, I'm with Vita Health Partnerships, and we are advocates for public health and global health equity. So learning material through guest lecturers or opportunities like service opportunities has kind of inspired me to get more involved with public health. And that's how I talked to my advisor, Jane Parr, and I was like, I'm thinking of minoring in public health. How can you help me with that? And she kind of guided me through that.
And Jane, I wanted to bring you back on board. We have a couple of questions, or a question from Kirsten. Wants to know if there's anything else she should do prior to orientation other than her placement exams.
No, just make sure you're reading everything that comes through your mail and just follow the directions.
Yeah, that's really key, is just checking those dates when things need to be done and when you can sign up for orientation. As I said, it'll be March 29th, which is next Monday. And you can even check it to see if it opens a few days before that, because sometimes it does. And if it is, definitely start going for it, start doing those modules and get everything scheduled. Kirsten has another question, so maybe one of the students can answer this. How would I find opportunities for internships through Riley Children's Hospital? Just in general, how did you find your internships, or where should students look for internships?
I can kind of take that a little bit. So, aside from using your kind of network to kind of figure it out, because right away you don't have that. You're going to build that though. One way is to kind of go through what you would be interested in. Like if you have something at Riley, or you can go to like Riley's website, see who is doing what, just send them an email being like, I'm really interested. I'm a freshman at IUPUI. I'm studying biology. Kind of tell them a little bit about yourself, say, I'm really interested in your research. If you kind of can understand a little bit about the research, like through some of their papers, maybe you can just like use Google Scholar, read like one of their last papers, just say a little bit of information in that, and then kind of say like, I'd be interested in talking to you, or like potentially working with you in the future.
So the other thing I would mention is the LHSI, the Life Health Sciences Internship Program, because that's a great one where School of Science students can do an internship at the School of Medicine, and there are placements at Riley as well. And they do, I think, 75 total interns each year through that program.
And you'll also want to talk to our science preps office, because they do have a handshake database that lists internships on campus and off of campus as well. They also offer healthcare shadowing classes through the science preps office that you can complete an application to be a part of that program. So there are a lot of different opportunities. If you talk to your advisors, they will definitely set you up with the right resources in order to find those. I wanted the students to just share one of the things about science is it is a very rigorous major. Can you each give some advice to the students about how you manage your time and you still have some free time for fun? Because obviously college is a combination of studying and also growing as an individual. So how did you manage that?
That's a good question. Like you'll come to find out really soon that science majors are very rigorous, and you'll have maybe spend a lot more times than your friends most of the time studying material, and that's more just because there's a lot of information that you're tested over. But definitely, like through your first year, you're gonna take classes that prepare you for upper level classes and make you practice certain ways for studying, and you'll find your groove when it does come to studying and note taking too.
I would add that, again, we talked about networking, but working in groups. As a peer mentor with PLTL, I always advocate for group work and collaborative learning. So like my freshman year, I was in the theme learning community, molecules to medicine. So I had block classes with my biology, chemistry, and my labs with 25 of the same students. So I used that to have like a chunk of us, and we all studied together and learned and talked about our content. But also it takes some time to get used to, especially with COVID. I think every student, every faculty and staff member had to adjust time, but learning to plan and prioritize and block your time. So that would be my advice.
My advice, can I get a calendar, get a schedule book, put them in your thing, like the class time, also put the office hours in there as well. Because if you know when the office hours are, and if they have, like, you're able to just go to them. If it's still virtual, put the ID, like the Zoom ID in the thing, and you can just click the link from your calendar. That's even better yet. Other ways that you can kind of stay organized, making sure you've got blocked out time. Like, I'm going to be doing this at this time, and kind of keeping that priority towards your studies.
And we are running out of time, so I do want to take that into consideration. But I did want to end with giving you each one last chance to talk a little bit about, why you chose IUPUI initially, and why you love it now and choose to stay, just so our students can understand some of the things that we do offer.
Yeah, what really drew me to IUPUI was the city, and you'll hear urban advantage thrown around a lot. And that's really just saying that with the city being right next door to IUPUI, there's a lot of opportunities, mostly like internships, what we have been talking about. But it was also a completely different scene. Like IUPUI is one of a kind. I mean, you'll come to see what I mean, but I've made a good group of friends here and had plenty of opportunities to join a lot of orgs. I think the other students did as well. They can attest to that too. But Yeah, IUPUI, I feel like is the future with urban campus, and you'll be the first on firsthand experience with that.
I chose IUPUI because I heard like so many great things about the science program, but also like when I visited campus, all the OT members, staff that we talked to, faculty we talked to were so welcoming, and I knew that I would have support throughout my academic journey. Um, so all of these resources that we have, like Thomas said, the opportunities that are very unique to undergraduate students at IUPUI. So that was kind of my draw, and I love the community that we have on campus. I love the teams I get to work with every single week and the friendships I've built. So it's been a great time.
Not to steal anybody else's ideas, but opportunities and resources, we're going to hammer it home. With IUPUI being kind of big, but not really big, your professors care about you. You can make it smaller somewhat by sitting in the front in classes, and you can really take kind of like you can you can actually talk to your professors. They care about you. Big school, small, but you can't make a small school big. And I think this is kind of one of the best schools to do that at.
Great answers, everyone. And, also, we are a life health science campus in a lot of ways with the hospitals and the School of Medicine, the School of Dentistry on campus. With those experiences, there's really no better place to study biology. So you definitely want to take in mind, the resources that are available to you, as Lucas said, so that you can make the most out of your undergraduate career, both academically and socially as well, which, we do have those advantages, as Thomas mentioned, with the city right here in our front yard. I did want to thank you for coming today. I really do appreciate your time on this Tuesday afternoon. And I want to thank my panelists, Lucas, Sylvia, and Thomas, and also Dr. Cummins, Jane, and Jane for your time. And I want everyone to have a great day. And if you do have any questions going forward, feel free to reach out to me. My name is Lori Hart, so it's lorihart@iupui.edu. Or if you forget that, it's just science@iupui.edu. Have a great day.